Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3. As today we catch up on your current events. Though in actually looking at this place, I suppose there's nothing really current about it. Aside from those active turrets, which, based on their angle, do seem to somewhat limit our window of opportunity. So yeah, even ignoring the lockdown, it feels like, as far as entrances go, we have mushroom for improvement. Rather than going in through the front, we should maybe wind things down.
Wonder if the gods are watching me.
Perhaps find a more grounded approach. Because, yes, it turns out we can, in fact, reach the mushrooms from here. Fantastic. And here I was thinking that was actually supposed to be our route up into the tower. Turns out it's actually our path down. I mean, in theory, we could just go in and bust up those turrets, but we already soaked a lot of unnecessary damage getting past those first few. Obvious opening on that balcony there, but we're way too low to actually reach it. Alright, well, we'll just go in from the ground up. Makes the most sense anyway. Looks to be a one-way trip. Let me just make sure we're not missing anything. Alright, yeah. Let's bust out of Featherfall.
What's that?
Aha! A small gap in their defenses.
I'm way too big. Don't want to draw any attention.
We'll keep that in mind, but let's check out back.
Time to press ahead. I can be subtle sometimes.
Seems pretty contained.
I'll take that.
Lots of exotic flora, but no visible fauna. Water is not traversable.
Don't waste a step.
Ooh, Susser Bloom. Putting out an anti-magic field. Interesting. We still need Susser bark for that weapon schematic. I guess those anti-magic blooms were how we were supposed to get past the turrets. Though I did notice in editing that they were also vulnerable to electricity. We don't have a lot of that handy.
It feels like
That's
my magic
curious.
is getting drained.
Okay, hold on. Is that magic suppression going to follow us as long as we have the blooms? Or is it just from being near the tree? No obvious way to get bark from it either. I imagine we'll find some inside the tower. Nice. Let's get some distance.
Swift as my feet can carry me.
Okay, yep, these things are definitely still suppressing us. So a mobile anti-magic field. Interesting. That must be tied into what we're supposed to do here. Though, unfortunately, as a primary caster, that also really kind of handicaps us. Right, and we can't just hand it off to someone else. We'll need to stash it somewhere. Until we've got a better idea of where we actually need it. We'll just maybe stash it in these pots near the door. That way we can still actively defend ourselves if need be.
Damn, it's good to be alive.
Don't want to think about why my eye is itching.
Alright, let's crack this thing open.
What's next, I wonder? Let's get this lock to yield.
Interesting. So those blooms are still putting off the aura,
Keeping my head down.
even in a container. Ooh, and we've got an alchemy lab. Nice. So based on what we've seen thus far, I have to assume the susser blooms are essentially like a mobile security suppression field for the various automated defenses that are still active in this place. That's a fun mechanic. I like that. Oh, withered blue petals. Interesting. That implies dried susser flowers? Oh, yeah, look at that. Treatise on the anti-magic properties of susser tree flowers. Right next to a bunch of glowing blue alchemical gear. Right, so I guess we're supposed to, like, distill it somehow. Maybe that'll give us a better way to channel or weaponize the anti-magic properties. Replacement Featherfall Scroll, nice. And Gith and Mind Flayers. I believe we've read that one. I want to say that was like an interview with an elven elder. Let me just double check that real quick. This, though. This is definitely new. Yes, Palador the Swift. I do remember that. Okay, so we have definitely read this one. Though still very relevant to a lot of what we're doing. Let's see what this other one has for us. Treatise on the anti-magic properties of susser tree flowers. A research paper on susser tree flowers. Only the first paragraph is finished. They said, as if any of these books were more than 2 pages long. The Anti-Magic Properties of Susser Tree Flowers by L. D. Hurst. For those knowing about susser trees, their magical properties have always been a topic of debate. Not only their ability to create an anti-magic aura, which is complete enough that even those unattuned to the weave can feel its effect, but also, and most interestingly to those living in the world above, the way its roots, bark, and flowers can be harnessed to make magic items, Rumors of such items are rare, but spread in settlements bordering the Underdark. Their existence, however, has never been confirmed by any of our clerics, nor by any other reputable scholars. I hypothesize that these items are no mere legends, and indeed, in this treatise I will endeavor to explain how I myself created items that have anti-magic properties, and that use the magical absorption of susser tree flowers as a power source. Lines have been drawn on the following pages, as if the author intended to fill them with writing, but the remainder of the thin book is blank. Right, because she went missing. That's, Lenore de Hurst. I guess the potential love interest for Ur the Sparkstruck. Though our big takeaway here, obviously, is the very blatant nod towards susser blooms being used as a magical fuel source, which would certainly explain the withered blue petals in front of this giant glowing machine. It's actually kind of interesting, I suppose, the idea of an anti-magical force itself being harnessed as a potential fuel source, since, of course, classically, in a setting like this, magic would be the fuel for pretty much everything. Over the years, D&D has very much leaned hard into the whole arcane punk or aether punk aesthetic. But this, introducing anti-magic as its own separate potential power source, really gives it more of like an arcanum feel, you know, the active opposition of technology versus magic. Both being presented as like a viable method of technological advancement, but also being inherently diametrically opposed to each other. Though I suppose that's not entirely what's going on here, since obviously Lenore found more conventional ways to harness it for use in otherwise magical projects. Fringe philosophies. Yeah, I feel like we've already read this one. Though it is kind of funny seeing a book about the dangers of Netherese magic in the midst of this workshop, pioneering yet another type of potent new magic. Which I suppose in turn really kind of highlights the inherently cyclical nature of arcane hazards in your classic high fantasy setting. Okay, so I imagine we need a fresh susser bloom for this. Yes. One sec. We'll put the petal to the metal, see what happens. We'll just do one for now. Oh. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that would imply that the susser field, while powering certain elements of the tower, also actively inhibits the use of other magical items. Though, obviously, we can still cast spells, so it's not suppressing us. But it did shut off the arcane turrets, which themselves, I guess, were purely magical items. Whereas the rest of the tech inside the tower seems to be powered by the susser blooms, the lights, the lift over there. Uncovered Mysteries. A magic amulet that grants detect thoughts. Beneath the layers of dust covering this necklace, its inlaid gems still give off a blue sparkle, the color of Mystra's clergy. Right, because Lenore is a cleric of Mystra. It does make you wonder how Ur actually stayed functional here, if she was a more conventional arcane caster. Though again, I suppose it's not like the field is actively inhibiting us, now that we're not actively carrying the blooms. Not to mention, her forge was very pointedly outside the tower. It was out in the courtyard just beyond the turrets. Everything we've seen inside the tower very distinctly belongs to Lenore. The garden out back, the Sussa Root Research Alchemy Lab, the generator, the lights, the lift, plus that amulet we just pulled out of that coffer. Really, aside from the letter, we've seen no signs of Ur being active here. Alright, let's start pushing up the tower. Turrets should be disabled, but we'll be on our guard. No immediate active threats. Indoor herb garden. Kind of feels like it should be more overgrown based on how far into ruin the rest of this place has fallen, but I suppose we could maybe attribute that to lingering garden magics. The Red Bear Book. Let me just clear the rest of these shelves real quick. Alright, let's see what we've got here. The Red Bear Book. Stained and torn. Most of this book has been lost to time. This threadbare book looks as if it once contained a play, but most of it has been lost to time, vermin, and an unfortunate ink spill. Only 2 full sentences are distinguishable. How can I trust? How will I ever know? How can I show myself? My darkest me. Huh.
Seems like the owner was quite the literary type.
Yeah, I guess so. Interesting. Sounds like whoever wrote it was having a crisis of confidence or conscience. No real context just yet, but I'm sure we'll find more. Sprouting Timisk. Also known as the Devil's Mushroom for its mind-altering effects. Oh, good to know. So what are these for? Essence of Timisk. Which in turn is used to create Fungal Bamboozler. I got bamboozled. Okay, so like confusion grenades, that's fun. Traveler's chest? Where? Maybe outside the room? Yeah, I'll have to go over this place with a fine-tooth comb later. They do love hiding things up in nooks and crannies. And now it's outside the window. Go home, Baldur's Gate 3. You're clearly drunk. Or perhaps bamboozled. I'm actually kind of surprised we haven't been attacked yet. The webs kind of implied we wouldn't be alone in here. Alright, so Tongue of Madness. Used to create Sublimate of Tongue of Madness. Which in turn we use to create Tadpole Elixir. Hold on. Stimulates the pineal gland in the brain, unlocking malevolent power. Wait, is that just a temporary boost, or is that an actual full-fledged tadpole point? Interesting. That certainly bears further investigation. Once we track down a third tongue. Ah, there's another obvious jumping point. Oh, I bet that was another descent path to help us get down to the generator before we activated the lift. But no real point in messing with it since we have activated the lift. So, in theory, this should now take us up to the deactivated interior turrets. Yes, okay, perfect. Let's clear the room, then we'll continue our ascent. I think I said it last time, but I really appreciate how many different approaches they give you to these various obstacles. Ooh, lore book. Let's check that out. Dusty Book. An academic print of a literary play, complete with extensive notes and annotations. The beginning of this book proudly declares it to be a play by Dame Inya, followed by an extensive introduction and 23 pages of notes on the text. Though the book itself seems barely touched, one stanza is encircled twice. There is a light in every living thing, it's crawling towards the surface to survive. And in its wake it tramples everything, will kill the rest so that the one can thrive. So is that literal or metaphorical? Ooh, chest.
That chest. I can feel its magic.
Though not a traveler's chest. This is a magical chest of the mundane. Yeah, that looks pretty mundane. So what's the catch here? Is this always populated with...
Did that just transform?
Oh, I see. I see. Interesting. A chest to disguise your treasures as mundane objects. That's creative. Like, not super practical for us, but I could definitely see folks like Lenore or Ur using it to steer burglars or looters away from their more valuable goods. Also, featherfall boots. Those will definitely come in handy. So if we put these spider step boots inside the chest, they would become suppressed? Oh yeah, look at that. So the answer is a resounding yes, and we gained inspiration. Though sadly I think we were actually already capped out right now, but we'll take the XP. That's a fun item. I like that. We'll go ahead and grab it, though again, I sincerely doubt we'll have any real practical use for it. But, I mean, like, if this were a tabletop campaign, I could definitely see scenarios where in theory, it might actually come in handy. Oh, hey, there's our traveler's chest. Imagine using that chest of the mundane as your hiding place for that artifact everyone's after. Or any other magical plot MacGuffin. Honestly, given the people who are supposedly after this thing, you'd think that would be a plot point, finding some way to better conceal it, because given how many people are after this thing, you'd really expect someone to have busted out location magic by now. But instead, everyone just seems to be searching blind. Broken machinery. The cogs of this metal contraption are bent out of shape, the steel sheeting dented and cracked. Still, you can make out two sets of initials embossed in the copper. LDH and YTS. Really? So You're the Sparkstruck is her full legal name? Oh, that's weird. They actually have two different icons or models for the broken machinery. That feels unnecessary. There's the window we could have come through. Though, honestly, given that we could just shut these turrets off, I'm glad we didn't. Though I suppose that would have been 80 XP. And there's our alternate path down. With more broken machinery. Weird they'd make broken machinery the basis of an elixir. Alright, let's push up another level. There's gotta be a fight here somewhere. Aha, yes. Okay, on your guard, adventurers.
Have to keep going.
Let's scour the room here, see if we can get a hint of what we're walking into. Given the positioning of the perception zones, I'm going to guess they're above us.
Can hardly feel the spinning.
Which does make sense. Top of the tower, sure. Is that another? Yep. Marcus, wow. AKA the Beast. Honestly, I think one of my least used companions back in DOS 2. The pirate theme was fun, he just felt so generic next to characters like Fane and the Red Prince, you know? But then again, I was never really much of a dwarf guy. Ooh. Mage's Friend. Magic ring with +1 Arcana and Religion. Though carefully stowed away in a bedside chest, this ring is covered in dust and cobwebs. Oh, skill bonuses. I wish it were full-on proficiency, but... yeah, I'm definitely making room for that, considering the way skills work in this game. Which I guess means we'll drop poison resistance? That feels impractical, but at the same time, I really don't want to miss those skill bumps. Yeah, we'll toss the...
With every breath, a
oh,
purpose.
and look at that.
My faith protects
Lae'zel's actually got an open slot, so that makes it easy. Nice.
What to do?
Pet Nook. That's fun. Plus a pet button?
Strange place for a button. Especially one that doesn't work.
Yeah. Doubly strange considering you have a unique line recorded just to react to it. Given the nature of what we've seen here thus far, I half suspect it's for like
Give it a shot.
a techno-magical or clockwork pet. Maybe that's what the other Susser Bloom is for.
Wonder if the gods are watching me.
Like we'll find it lying around here somewhere and we can repair and repower it.
I spy with my little eye. Yeah. Nothing of note, really.
Really figured that would give us a glimpse of the nearby village. Stuffed hook horror head. That's new. Nice foreshadowing for a threat we have yet to encounter. Perhaps that's what we've got up on the top. Plus a whole ton of lore books, it looks like. Ooh, we have to be careful here.
Maybe I need more pockets.
An engraved Githyanki disc. Wow, thank goodness we still have Lay with us. Assuming she reacts to it specifically. Alright, almost out of time, but let's close out with a couple of lore books, shall we? The Careful Art of Tirsu Ciphers. This stone disc is carved with circular runes and petroglyphs. An engraved disc of Githyanki origin containing a complex cipher that can decrypt ancient Gith dialects. A useful discovery if one should encounter such archaic writings. You don't say. Like the ones on this giant Gith D20 we've been carting around? I would certainly like to translate those, but I'm not sure how we actually do that. Torn out paper. A torn strip of paper with 2 lines of barely legible script. The writing on this torn out strip of paper is shaky and blotted with tears, making it barely legible. The silence stretches on. I'm all alone. Please, can I hold your hands? For just a while? Oh, that one's obvious. That's either Ur or Lenore lamenting the loss of their partner. The Road to Darkness.
Such a strange disc. Are these Githyanki markings? Lae'zel might know.
Oh ho, a specific name drop for Lae'zel. That's certainly promising. So we're seeing a lot of signs all of a sudden that Ur or Lenore were studying up on Gith for some reason. Though I'm hard-pressed to imagine why. Nothing we saw down below would imply they're tied into what we're currently caught up in. Let's poke at that disc real quick. See if we can get some context.
The disc appears in your mind's eye. Lae'zel sees it too, and considers the vision.
Tirsu markings. Ancient. I recognize them, but I can't make sense of... No. Wait. The texts are enciphered, but I've solved the pattern. It's a story. About Orpheus.
Your head buzzes in concert with Lae'zel's, but it hardly matters. Even without the connection, you'd recognize her discomfort.
Tirsu. Can't say I'm familiar. What is it?
Githyanki writing. Every word a wheel. Every letter a spoke. The most powerful texts are engraved in slate. Some so ancient, only the most erudite Gish can read them.
And this Orpheus? Do you know who that is? Doesn't really sound like a Gith name.
A traitor. A dead one. This text is heresy. I can hardly bear to read it, let alone speak it.
And yet, read it you will. Unless for some reason you don't want us to know who that is.
Very well. I will read it to you. The Prince of the Comet, Part 1. So it was that we were free from Geich shackles and turned our blades on each other. The heavens were shattered, and one great empire was divided in two. Gith traveled to the Hells to broker help for her people, her cause. Vlakith would have you believe Mother Gith proclaimed her our queen. Lies. Gith made no such proclamation. Vlakith seized the empire against the Mother's wishes. But Gith had nurtured a son, Orpheus, Prince of the Comet, the true heir. He knew Vlakith's treachery. Orpheus rallied Gith's honor guard and declared the throne for himself. The War of the Comet had begun.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Disregard this drivel. Gith declared Vlakith queen of the Empire, and her own son defied her. Orpheus would have ceded control to the Geich.
I mean, I'm definitely not up on my Gith lore, but even I know that Vlakith is evil. She literally cannibalizes her own kind to perpetuate her own existence. Then Orpheus was the rightful ruler of the Gith, and Vlakith stole his throne.
She did nothing of the sort. Thank your good fortunes I'm a tolerant woman, or I'd have sliced off a few toes for suggesting it.
Sure, yeah, that is certainly something that could have happened, and then I could have also blasted you out the window of this tower to your death. I think we can both be glad things didn't play out that way. Also, glad to see that we apparently still have the option to bring up dragon riding with her. Though methinks we may avoid that, despite Karlach so generously giving us permission to stray. Maybe? I mean, I don't know. Lae'zel does have her charms. She also likes Karlach, which is always a plus. Then again, who doesn't? I think the only person in the party who's expressed disdain for her was Asterion. And that's because he sucks. Anyway, yeah, I feel like this is a good place to call it. We've still got a few more lore books to get through, but we'll save those for next time. As well as whatever lurks atop this tower. Which, at this point, honestly, I feel like could go in a lot of different directions. It could be something basic, like you're the Sparkstruck still pining after her lost Lenore. But it could also be some sort of clockwork automaton, or a hooked horror, or just a giant old spider. That said, we'll hit the pause button for now. We'll take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping. And we will pick up here next time. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Revenant, Alois, CrowkingLoR, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, Theory V23, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
Disregard this drivel.